When did a low-key funeral service devolve into a viral disaster over life insurance for a man who wasn't even dead? Oh my god, I cannot believe I am typing this out at 3:17 a.m., but I literally just need to get this whole mess out of my head before I spontaneously combust. I am sitting in my 2018 Honda Civic in the Costco parking lot, yes, the one near the highway, because my apartment is currently occupied by the most unhinged human beings I have ever encountered, and I seriously don't know if I'm going to get fired or arrested first. The really short version, is that Juan Garcia, 45M, who is finally starting to understand his own neurodivergence, late life autism self-discovery thanks TikTok, was just trying to host a very low-key, professional, shared workspace memorial service that turned into a viral video disaster involving two 40-something women having a screaming match over a dead man's life insurance payout. I know it sounds like something on Netflix, but this is my actual life. And the worst part is the guy whose funeral it was, he wasn't even dead, not exactly. Okay, deep breath. Let me rewind a bit and give you the context, because past me was such an idiot for thinking this was a good idea. I run a small, niche shared workspace called The Quiet Zone. It's geared toward people who, like me, need minimal sensory input to function. Think soft lighting, noise-canceling headphones mandatory, no strong smells, very few phone calls, and absolute adherence to the rules. It's my safe space, and it actually generates just enough to pay my $1,247 rent for apartment 3B and keep my iPhone 14 charged. About 6 months ago, I acquired two new clients who basically monopolized the place. First was Cynthia King, 47F. She presented herself as a freelance consultant, very put together, always ordering a venti Americano from Starbucks via the delivery guy who always parked in spot 11. She seemed stressed, like perpetually on edge, and she wore this ridiculously huge fake diamond ring that looked like it cost more than my annual income. She was always on the phone, though she tried to keep it to the minimal volume rule, which meant I heard a lot of whispered arguments about money. I caught snippets, of course, because the walls are thin and she'd forget her AirPods. It was always about this guy, her ex Mike. She'd be frantically Zelle requesting money or checking her bank balance, which was apparently always short. I remember seeing her face when she got an overdraft fee notification once. She looked like she was going to throw her Samsung Galaxy across the room. She eventually confessed to me during a moment when I was fixing the printer, honestly TMI, that Mike was the father of her now adult kids, and he was an absolute deadbeat dad. Like decades of avoiding child support, vanishing acts, showing up only to borrow $200 and generally making her life hell. She was trying to finish paying off a massive debt he'd stuck her with years ago, something involving a failed restaurant venture, and she was relying heavily on these sporadic, minimal payments he was supposed to be making. Cynthia was constantly on my case about keeping the workspace open late, saying she had a deadline, but I suspect she was just avoiding going home to her messy situation. She once broke down crying over a $347 electric bill she couldn't afford to pay because Mike was supposed to send the money Tuesday at 11:47 a.m. and it never showed up. NGL, I felt really bad for her. Then about 2 months after Cynthia started, Nicole Martinez, 53F, joined. Nicole was the total opposite of Cynthia. Very organized, aggressively cheerful, and wore these huge, structured blazers that made her look like she was always about to fire someone. She took the corner desk, which had the best lighting, and immediately started leaving passive-aggressive notes about how others were using the microwave incorrectly. She was essentially a controlling parent who had apparently transferred her need for total order from her grown kids, who she constantly bragged about but also subtly criticized, onto our little workspace. Nicole did not believe in boundaries. She would literally walk right up to my desk and interrupt me while I was trying to code, which is, my actual job. Shed hover and offer unsolicited life advice. She once told me I should stop eating Trader Joe's frozen meals because they lacked nutritional discipline. I wanted to tell her to mind her own business, but confrontation gives me heart palpitations, so I just nodded and hid my Talenti gelato in the back of the freezer. Here's where the chaos starts weaving together. Nicole and Cynthia absolutely hated each other instantly. It was like two apex predators vying for the same lukewarm Keurig coffee. Nicole hated that Cynthia occasionally received a delivery of Chipotle during the quiet hours. Cynthia hated that Nicole always played her motivational podcasts just loud enough for me to hear about maximizing Q4 potential. I literally had to intervene once because Nicole had moved Cynthia's monitor an inch to the left, claiming it violated the ergonomic symmetry, rule I definitely did not invent. About 3 weeks ago, things got weird. Cynthia came in looking like she hadn't slept in 48 hours. Her eyes were swollen, not from mascara run but from deep ugly crying. She told me, stammering a bit, Mike is gone. I wait, what are you saying? She clarified that Mike, the deadbeat dad, had suffered a massive unexpected medical event and was declared brain dead. They were pulling the plug in a week. The initial reaction was relief, honestly, which felt gross, but she admitted it. Relief that the constant financial and emotional drain was about to end. She started talking immediately about the $500,000 life insurance policy he had, which according to the original divorce decree was supposed to go directly to her and the kids, covering all the back support and debt he'd accrued, including that ridiculous $43.67 grocery bill he swore he'd repay her for last month. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "This is it, Juan. This is my chance to finally breathe." Now, Mike wasn't technically dead yet, but he was certainly functionally deceased. Cynthia, needing a way to mark the occasion without actually holding a full funeral yet because of the paperwork, the lease on his tiny apartment, etc., decided she wanted to host a private, small, professional memorial viewing in the shared conference room at the Quiet Zone. I know, red flag number 1000. But she was crying and I am weak to crying, especially when it's about financial stability. Plus, she offered me an extra $200 for the time slot, which I desperately needed because the plumber had just charged me $85 to tighten a single faucet. I agreed, stipulating that it had to be after 5:30 p.m., maximum 10 people, and absolutely zero crying in the common area. The day before the memorial, I was prepping the conference room. Cynthia had brought in a large, framed, slightly grainy photo of Mike. He looked like he was wearing a Hawaiian shirt and holding a plastic cup, very tasteful, and a small vase of sad-looking lilies. Then Nicole showed up. Nicole, who had been suspiciously quiet for 2 days, likely gathering intelligence. Nicole peered into the conference room and then gave me this shark-like smile. "What is this, Juan? A baby shower? You didn't approve this through the proper channel." I explained very calmly that Cynthia was hosting a private event for a deceased loved one. Nicole tilted her head, her blazer shoulder practically hitting the ceiling. "A deceased loved one, Mike? Oh, Juan, you poor naive thing. Mike isn't deceased. Mike is my fiancé." My jaw literally dropped, like cartoon character jaw drop. I almost dropped the box of lukewarm pastries I was setting out. I'm sorry, what?" I stammered. "I said Mike is my fiancé," Nicole repeated, emphasizing the French word like she was starring in a period drama. "He and I have been together quite seriously since fall 2019. We were supposed to finalize the paperwork on his primary residence this week. And guess who he designated as the sole beneficiary on his $500,000 life insurance policy after he, shall we say, updated his preferences a few years back? Hint, it wasn't the deadbeat ex-wife." I felt my stomach drop to the floor. The math wasn't mathing, you know. Cynthia thought she was walking away with $500,000 in closure. Nicole thought she was walking away with $500,000 in closure. They were fighting over the same guy's not yet dead body and the same insurance check. I tried to call Cynthia immediately. She didn't pick up. I checked my texts. She'd sent me 27 unanswered calls and a string of texts in the last hour, all increasingly frantic. Text from Cynthia 4:55 p.m. "I swear to God if she shows up I will lose it." Text from Cynthia 5:01 p.m. "Juan, is she there? Tell me she isn't there." Text from Cynthia 5:05 p.m. "I'm serious, call me back." I realized that Cynthia knew Nicole was Mike's current partner, but maybe she didn't know Nicole knew about the memorial. Or maybe she did, and she was counting on the sheer audacity of having the memorial in my office to be enough of a deterrent. Regardless, the memorial was scheduled for 6:00 p.m. I had a full-blown panic attack trying to clean up the spilled coffee from Nicole's desk while simultaneously hiding my AirPods because I needed to mute the world. My throat felt tight. I just wanted to go home and watch Hulu and forget this entire nightmare. At 5:58 p.m., Cynthia arrived with 2 of her grown children looking grim but determined. She was wearing a sharp black suit and carrying a legal file folder the size of a small laptop. At 6:01 p.m., Nicole arrived, not wearing funeral black but a severe bright white pantsuit, looking like she was about to present an aggressive business proposal. She had brought 2 stern-looking men in cheap suits who looked suspiciously like lawyers. They met at the threshold of the quiet zone, right next to the sign that clearly states, "Minimal noise, respect quiet hours." Cynthia saw Nicole and stopped dead. Her face went from determined grief to pure incandescent rage. "The audacity," Cynthia hissed, her voice low but vibrating the whole floor. "The absolute audacity of this woman." Nicole smiled sweetly, the most terrifying smile I have ever witnessed. "Cynthia, I had no idea you were conducting a rehearsal. Mike would have loved the lilies, they're his favorite." Cynthia stepped forward, practically touching Nicole's aggressively tailored shoulder pad. "You think this is funny, Nicole? You think you can just waltz in here and act like you didn't steal decades of my life?" "Steal?" Nicole laughed, a sharp, brittle sound that definitely violated the minimal noise rule. "Dear, Mike was a grown man who made choices, and he chose me. He certainly didn't choose to honor that archaic 20-year-old divorce agreement concerning his $500,000 policy. You thought wrong. That money is for my children." Cynthia roared, and this time it was definitely over the noise limit. "That money," Nicole countered, stepping closer so their faces were inches apart, "is for Mike's beneficiary, me. I've been supporting Mike for the last 2 years, 8 months. You were just the last person he finally managed to cut off." And that's when Cynthia, the exhausted, cash-strapped, deadbeat dad victim, did something absolutely unprecedented. She reached out and slapped Nicole across the face, hard. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet zone. Nicole's eyes went wide, then narrow. One of the supposed lawyers yelled, "Hey!" Cynthia was shaking, mascara running down her face. "You're not getting a dime, not 1 single cent of that life insurance. I swear I'll drag you through every court in this state." Nicole, holding her cheek, didn't retaliate physically. She did something far worse. She pulled out her iPhone and started filming Cynthia's breakdown, her face twisted in a mask of aggressive, entitled smugness. "Go ahead, darling," Nicole sneered, keeping the phone steady. "Make a scene. Everything you do right now is evidence of your unstable character. This whole little charade, it's going straight to my attorney. And frankly, Mike deserves a better send-off than this pathetic shared office viewing." Cynthia saw the phone and the filming, and the rage amplified. She grabbed the large, framed photo of Mike in the Hawaiian shirt and raised it like a shield. "Then go to hell," Cynthia shrieked, and she chucked the framed picture directly at Nicole. Nicole screamed and ducked, and the frame smashed against the wall right next to the sign for the emergency exit. Glass went everywhere. I was standing there frozen, trying to process the auditory input and the sudden, overwhelming scent of lilies mixed with pure aggression. My heart was racing so hard I thought I was going to pass out. I knew this was already a fireable offense, a violation of every single one of my rules, but then I realized something horrifying. A third party, one of the freelancers who usually comes in after 6 p.m. and requires complete silence, had her laptop open on the lobby table, and she wasn't just watching, she was live streaming the entire thing on TikTok. I saw the comments scrolling wildly. OMG, is this real? And Funeral Fight Live, my controlled, quiet workspace, my refuge, my livelihood, was rapidly devolving into a viral video disaster, broadcast live to the entire internet, all because a deadbeat dad was clinging to life support and two furious women were fighting over his $500,000. Cynthia, realizing the severity of the situation and the glass everywhere, suddenly looked terrified. She grabbed her file folder, shouted something about calling her lawyer first thing tomorrow, and bolted out the door with her kids. Nicole, still holding her cheek and filming the smashed glass, looked directly at me. "Juan," she said, her voice dangerously quiet now, "you let her host this unauthorized, slanderous event. You are complicit in this physical assault and the destruction of property. I expect you to provide me with the security footage, or I will ensure the quiet zone loses every single client you have, starting with the police report I'm filing tonight." I looked at the conference room, the smashed frame, the sad lilies, and the TikTok stream still going strong on the freelancer's screen. My world, which I had carefully constructed around quiet routine and controlled boundaries, was shattered literally and figuratively. I couldn't talk. I just needed to escape. I grabbed my keys, bolted out the door, and drove here to Costco because it's the only place open late that feels safe and sterile. I left Nicole Martinez, the controlling white-suited menace, standing in the glass-littered lobby of the quiet zone, demanding my video evidence and threatening to destroy my entire business. I have no idea if she actually called the cops yet or if I'm going to wake up to a cease and desist order. And Mike, the catalyst for this entire mess, is still technically alive, giving us the world's most dramatic, viral video-worthy pre-funeral fight. I am done, just done. I am literally walking away from my own business and hiding in a parking lot because I cannot face the consequences of this disaster. The last thing I saw before I drove away was a notification pop up on my own phone, a text from Cynthia. "Juan, I know what she showed you, but you need to see this text Mike sent me 2 days before his incident. It changes everything. I'm forwarding it now. Look at 7:15 p.m. I am still in the Civic. It is now 4:15 a.m. and the Costco security guy just drove by and gave me a look that screams, 'You poor soul, what financial decision led you to this parking lot at this hour?' I am trying to decide if I should just drive to the next state or actually look at the text Cynthia sent me. I hate confrontation. I hate high sensory input. I hate legal threats." Nicole, that white-suited tyrant, basically nuked my safe space and then demanded I provide the cleanup crew. I finally pull up the text thread with Cynthia. She had sent the messages while I was standing there frozen, watching my life broadcast on TikTok. The last one was the critical one. "Juan, I know what she showed you, but you need to see this text Mike sent me 2 days before his incident. It changes everything. I'm forwarding it now. Look at 7:15 p.m. I scroll down. Below her frantic, "I am serious, call me back" text, there are 2 screenshots. The first screenshot is a text chain between Mike labeled "Mike Dad Do Not Answer" and Cynthia. It's dated 2 days before he collapsed. Mike 3:05 p.m. "Hey, see, I need those insurance docs for the kids. I found the original filing you did back in 4. Need to make sure the beneficiaries are sorted properly before I sign these refinancing papers with Nick. She's being a psycho about paperwork." Cynthia 3:17 p.m. "They're in the blue binder under the papers from the failed restaurant loan, Mike. You know where, and you signed an irrevocable trust. They're sorted. Leave it alone." Mike 3:20 p.m. "Yeah, but the policy I'm signing with Nick tomorrow overrides the old one if I don't specify the split. She thinks she's getting the full $500K. LOL, don't worry. I'll make sure the kids get their half. You get nothing though, you already know that part." Cynthia 3:23 p.m. "I don't care about my part, Mike. Just give the kids what you owe them." Okay, that's interesting, but it doesn't change everything. It just confirms Mike was still a terrible person, manipulating both women. He was seemingly trying to protect some of the funds for his kids from Cynthia while lying to Nicole about her getting the full amount. Then I look at the second screenshot. It's also from Mike to Cynthia, but this one is timestamped 7:15 p.m. that same day. Mike 7:15 p.m. "Actually, forget it. Nicole figured out I was hiding money. She found the old policy and threatened to tank the whole refinancing deal. I told her I already signed the new forms and made her the sole beneficiary. She's happy now. TBH, I'd rather watch you two fight over it than just hand it over. Enjoy the show. See, it's gonna be a disaster." My blood went cold. Mike knew the deadbeat dad was pulling one final posthumous prank. He knew the fight would happen. He was fully aware that he had set Cynthia up for $500,000 worth of hope while simultaneously ensuring Nicole got the legal upper hand. He set the funeral fight on a delay timer, literally. And here I was, Juan Garcia, the hapless owner of a quiet workspace, collateral damage in the final power play of a man currently sustained by machines. I am nauseous. This isn't just a business dispute anymore. This is calculated cruelty. I finally text Cynthia back because I need to know if she has an actual legal defense or if she's running on pure rage. Me 4:25 a.m. I saw the text. "This is horrific. What are you doing now? Did she call the police yet?" Cynthia 4:27 a.m. "I don't know, Juan. My lawyer is calling me back at 8 a.m. I just got home and Nicole's lawyer already sent me a photo of the smashed picture frame demanding a police interview and compensation for emotional distress. But the text changes everything, right? It shows malice on Mike's part. We can argue fraud." Me 4:30 a.m. "I am currently hiding in the Costco parking lot because Nicole threatened to ruin my business. She wants the security footage of the physical assault." Cynthia 4:31 a.m. "Do not give her the footage, Juan. Please, that footage shows me committing assault. It will tank my case and my reputation. Please, just say the system was down. I am begging you. I will pay for the glass." Oh good, a moral dilemma at 4:30 a.m. Provide evidence to the controlling parent to protect my business from immediate financial ruin, or destroy the evidence to protect the deadbeat dad victim from criminal charges and total financial collapse. In GL, my instinct is to just delete the footage and run the hard drive over with the Civic. I drove home around 5:30 a.m. feeling completely drained. The apartment building where the quiet zone is located, it's in the bottom floor commercial space I live in 3B, was silent, thank God. I crept past the lobby. The door was still slightly ajar, secured only by the heavy fire door. I could see the glint of glass on the industrial carpet. Nicole and her lawyers were gone. I went straight upstairs and spent the next 3 hours stress-watching nature documentaries and drinking cold coffee, trying to decide how to handle the security footage. So 2 days later, I haven't gone back to the quiet zone, not physically. I emailed my few remaining quiet clients, who are probably now quietly running for the hills, BTW, a very vague note about unforeseen maintenance issues, and told them the space would be closed for the week. I changed the digital lock codes and deactivated Nicole and Cynthia's key fobs. I also spent a solid hour in my tiny apartment closet, sweating profusely, trying to figure out how to access the server where the security footage is stored, which is, naturally, at the quiet zone. The system is networked, but I can't remotely delete the files without physical access, and I couldn't bring myself to walk into that scene of trauma. My business is officially on hold, which means my rent money is actively evaporating. The internet, however, is not on hold. The TikTok video of the funeral fight went full global viral. The freelancer, who I now deeply regret allowing access to my Wi-Fi, had titled it Karen vs. Karen $500K funeral fight live. I tracked the views. It hit 10 million in 12 hours. The sound of Cynthia roaring, "That money is for my children." Over the noise of the glass shattering had been turned into a remix. My workspace, the quiet zone, was now a meme. The sign in the background, "Minimal noise, respect quiet hours," was being mocked endlessly. This is the peak of sensory overload, but it's happening outside my body, which is slightly better, I guess. Nicole naturally leaned into the fame. I discovered she had done an interview with a local news station, standing outside the building, dressed immaculately, explaining how she was the betrayed fiancé, and how the video captured the culmination of years of harassment and instability from Mike's unhinged ex-wife. She didn't mention the $500,000 policy, just talked about the sanctity of her relationship and the brutal assault she endured in a professional environment. She totally made me look complicit too. She claimed Juan, the business owner, had assured her the ex-wife was not welcome on the premises, yet I had allowed a violent physical confrontation to take place on property. She even managed to look sad when she said, "The owner, Juan, is a nice man, but he clearly lost control of the situation." I wanted to throw my Talenti gelato at the television. Update, this morning 3 days after the fight. I finally had to go back to the office because I received a certified letter, the legal kind, very thick paper, very terrifying, from Nicole's lawyers, stating that they were seeking a court order to force me to surrender the security footage within 48 hours, or I would face charges for obstruction of justice and destruction of evidence. So I put on my least wrinkled shirt, took 3 deep breaths, and unlocked the door to the quiet zone. It looked exactly as I left it, only dustier. Scent of lilies was almost overpowering now, a sickly sweet smell mixed with the faint metallic tang of panic. The shattered glass was still next to the emergency exit sign. The Hawaiian shirt photo of Mike was in pieces. I walked straight to the back room, heart hammering against my ribs, and accessed the server. I pulled the footage from the exact time frame. Seeing it again was worse than being there. The sudden violent movement, the shattering glass, the immediate high-pitched screams, it was chaos. My chaos. I sat there watching myself stand frozen in the corner, looking exactly like the overwhelmed, useless man I felt like. If I give Nicole this footage, Cynthia is screwed. Nicole gets the moral high ground in court, and maybe actual physical assault charges against Cynthia, and likely the money. My business is maybe saved from Nicole's direct legal action against me, but my reputation is already mulched thanks to TikTok. If I delete the footage, I commit a crime, but I protect Cynthia, who, despite her own questionable choices, was genuinely trying to secure money Mike owed her children, and who was actively manipulated by Mike's last text message. TBH, I should be focused on protecting Juan. That's what therapists say, right? Protect your boundaries, protect your business. But the text Mike sent, "I'd rather watch you two fight over it than just hand it over," made me feel such visceral disgust. Mike was a deadbeat in life, and now he was a deadbeat in death. And Nicole, while technically Mike's fiancée, was simply the mechanism he used to inflict pain. She was trying to weaponize my quiet space to complete his cruelty. I looked at the server, I looked at the footage, I looked at the pathetic sign demanding minimal noise, and I realized something profound about my autism self-discovery journey. Boundaries aren't just about minimizing noise and light. They are about deciding what chaotic, morally repulsive input you're willing to let into your life and what you're absolutely refusing to participate in. I decided I was walking away from all of it. The quiet zone was tainted. Mike had polluted it. Nicole had weaponized it. I couldn't stay here even if I won the legal battle. The memory of the fight, the viral humiliation, it would always be there. So I did something impulsive, something completely out of character for rule-abiding Juan. I didn't delete the footage. I unplugged the entire server, pulled the hard drive, and took a baseball bat. Yes, I keep one in the back room. It was for self-defense, not evidence destruction, I swear, to the casing of the server itself. I didn't smash the hard drive because that felt too final and too illegal, but I completely pulverized the housing. If anyone asked, the system failed catastrophically due to the stress of the incident, and the drive was currently with data recovery specialists who were in high demand. A plausible lie if terrifying. I packed up my laptop, the handful of personal items I kept in my desk, including the hidden Talenti spoon and the sad, broken server casing. I left a note on the main whiteboard. The quiet zone is permanently closed. Lease termination notice will follow. Then I drove the hard drive straight to Cynthia's apartment, which was in a frankly depressing suburb 45 minutes away. I texted her when I pulled up. "I have something important. I'm leaving it by your door. Do not open the door, just collect it later." I didn't want a tearful confrontation. I placed the hard drive, which was now in a sealed evidence bag I found in the back room. I also kept those, long story, next to her door. I texted her. This is the server drive. It has the footage. The system failed. Do whatever you need to do. I am out. I didn't wait for a reply. I drove back to my apartment 3B and started packing my life into boxes. A week went by where I binge-watched forensic science shows and ate nothing but peanut butter pretzels. I officially terminated the lease for the Quiet Zone commercial space. It cost me the security deposit and 2 months' rent, but the relief of cutting that cord was immediate. I was now unemployed, stressed, and facing potential legal action, but I didn't have to face the smell of lilies anymore. Cynthia called me the day after I dropped off the drive. "Juan, I can't believe you did this. You risked everything for me." She was crying, but this time it sounded like actual gratitude, not financial stress. "I risked everything for me, Cynthia," I corrected her, trying to keep my voice steady. I walked away from a space that was destroying my peace. "I chose quiet over money. I am done." She understood. She had the hard drive. She didn't confess what she did with it. I assume she gave it to her lawyers with a note explaining that the system had failed spectacularly. Nicole, however, was not going quietly. Her lawyers continued to send me threatening letters. They tracked me down at apartment 3B, demanding I appear for a deposition about the intentional destruction of evidence. I finally sucked up the $400 for a 1-hour consultation with a real lawyer who specialized in commercial landlord-tenant issues and not viral funeral fights. The lawyer was a very tired-looking woman named Brenda, 50s F, who listened to my story while staring at a ceiling tile. "So let me get this straight, Mr. Garcia," Brenda sighed, pushing her glasses up. "You ran a niche specialized workspace. Your clients broke every single rule you had. One of them slapped the other one through a portrait, and the whole thing went viral on TikTok. The fight was over a $500,000 life insurance payout from a man who is currently brain dead, and you are being threatened by the current beneficiary who is also alleging you destroyed the footage of the slap." "Yes," I squeaked. Brenda pinched the bridge of her nose. "You closed the business, terminated the lease, and gave the hard drive to the other party. Did you destroy any financial documents or property belonging to the business?" "No," I said, "just the casing of the server, and I took the hard drive out. I didn't delete anything." Brenda looked slightly hopeful for the first time. "Okay, the moment you terminated the lease, your liability for the commercial space dramatically decreased. Nicole Martinez is claiming civil damages for assault and potentially destruction of property, the portrait, and she wants the footage for her insurance claim. However, she has no standing to sue you for Mike's insurance, which is what she really wants. She's using the legal system to harass you into giving up evidence that benefits her." "So what do I do about the obstruction charges?" I asked. "You file a police report yourself about the physical assault and the destruction of the property, the glass, the frame, and you name both women. You then inform Nicole's lawyers that the security system failed due to the stress of the incident, and the drive is currently undergoing extensive data recovery that is proving complex and expensive. You tell them that because of the high cost of recovery, you are requesting they pay a $5,000 upfront deposit to cover the recovery costs, and you will release whatever data can be recovered to the police. This is called making it not worth their time." In GL, my brain short-circuited trying to process that level of strategic BS. It was beautiful. I followed Brenda's instructions, drafting the most formal email of my entire life. I sent the letter to Nicole's lawyers, CCing Cynthia's lawyer with Cynthia's permission. Fast forward to Friday, 10 days after the fight. I have moved out of apartment 3B and into a temporary windowless room I found on Craigslist. It is tiny, smells faintly of pizza, but it is $750 a month and completely silent. I have achieved peak quietness, but at the cost of my entire professional life. I am spending my days coding freelance projects from my laptop, trying to replace the income stream from the Quiet Zone. It is slow going, but the legal maneuvering worked. Nicole's lawyers immediately backed down from the deposition threats after I requested the $5,000 deposit for data recovery. Suddenly, their need for the footage wasn't quite so urgent. It turns out Nicole wasn't interested in the evidence, she was interested in leverage, and when the leverage became expensive and bureaucratic, she bylaid. The true resolution, however, came from the catalyst himself, Mike. Mike, the deadbeat dad, finally officially died. They pulled the plug exactly 2 weeks after the fight. I saw the headline on the local news website. It mentioned he was a beloved member of the community, which I am sure was news to Cynthia. With Mike officially gone, the fight over the $500,000 policy moved from the shared workspace lobby to the courtroom where it belonged. Cynthia called me that afternoon. She sounded calmer, almost professional. "Juan, I'm just letting you know that Mike passed. I honestly didn't feel anything, just numbness, but the battle is on and I think I have a chance." "What about the text?" I asked. "The 7:15 p.m. betrayal." My lawyers using the text, along with the fact that Mike was on life support when Nicole started demanding insurance money, to argue that Mike lacked the mental capacity and intent to change the policy in favor of Nicole, Cynthia explained. "We're arguing undue influence and fraud based on his own recorded words. She's not getting off easy." I was genuinely impressed. Cynthia, the perpetually stressed, cash-strapped victim, had transformed. The moment she realized Mike had actively tried to destroy her future, she harnessed the full power of her rage and focused it into litigation. She was no longer crying about electric bills, she was mobilizing lawyers. "And Nicole?" I asked. "Oh, she's still awful," Cynthia snorted. "She's trying to sue the hospital for medical malpractice, claiming the whole brain-dead diagnosis was just a ploy to get her to stop interfering with the refinancing. She's delusional, but her lawyers are spending all their time on that nonsense, not chasing you for a hard drive." It seemed my plan to walk away, while terrifying and financially painful, was working perfectly. I had walked away from the business, walked away from the legal threat, and walked away from the moral choice of who to help. By removing myself entirely, the two women were forced to battle each other in the correct arena. 3 days after Mike's death, I got an unexpected visitor. I was sitting in my tiny windowless apartment trying to debug some JavaScript when my phone rang, unknown number. I answered it because I thought it might be the UPS driver trying to deliver my new noise-canceling headphones. It was Nicole Martinez. Juan, it's Nicole. I know you changed your number and address, but I pay people for this information. I froze, my chest immediately tightened. How did you get this number, Nicole? That's immaterial, she said, her voice sharp and perfectly controlled, just like the day of the fight. I'm outside your new apartment complex. I need to speak to you. My heart rate jumped to 140 BPM. I was trapped. I was in my sweatpants, surrounded by packing boxes, and Nicole Martinez, the embodiment of my recent trauma, was outside. I am not speaking to you, Nicole, I said, my voice shaking slightly. I have no legal obligation to speak to you. You need to leave immediately or I will call the police. Oh, Juan, don't be dramatic, she said, sounding annoyed. I just need one small thing. I know you closed the quiet zone. Fine. But I left my favorite blazer hanging on the back of the door of the conference room. It's a custom-tailored $1,200 Italian wool piece. I need it back. A blazer. She had tracked down my temporary safe haven, violating every professional and personal boundary, all for a dry-cleaned blazer. The controlling parent was in peak form, worried about wardrobe when she was embroiled in 2 massive lawsuits and a viral video scandal. Nicole, I managed, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles were white. The quiet zone is secured. I terminated the lease. You cannot access it, and I am not driving back there for your blazer. You abandoned your property. I did not abandon it. I was assaulted, she hissed. And you, as the property manager, are responsible for securing client possessions. I am not the property manager. I was the owner. I snapped back, surprising myself with the volume of my voice. And the quiet zone is closed. I am not accessing the building. If you want the blazer, you can contact the landlord directly and coordinate the retrieval yourself. Good luck explaining why your pricey Italian wool was left at the scene of a viral criminal incident. I took a huge shuddering breath. I didn't wait for her response. I pressed end call and immediately blocked the number. I felt a massive rush of adrenaline mixed with pure victory. I had not given in. I had held the boundary. I had told the controlling parent no. I spent the next 10 minutes pacing the pizza-smelling room, terrified she would try to knock on the door, but the building was silent. She must have realized the boundary was firm, or maybe the Italian blazer wasn't worth the risk of a police encounter. 3 weeks later, and I'm still adjusting. I've been working remotely, specializing in back-end coding for small businesses. My income is steadier, surprisingly, because I no longer have the overhead of the quiet zone lease, the utility bills, or the constant need to fix the temperamental Keurig machine. I also finally got some real clarity on my autism self-discovery, which NGL was accelerated by the traumatic chaos. I realized the quiet zone wasn't just a business. It was an elaborate defense mechanism. I had tried to control the external world, the light, the noise, the smells, to minimize my internal distress. But the moment human chaos entered the equation via Mike's betrayal and Nicole/Cynthia's fight, the entire structure collapsed because human beings are fundamentally unpredictable and messy. I can't control the world, but I can control my proximity to the chaos. Walking away from the quiet zone was the ultimate act of self-preservation. I'm eating ramen every day, but I sleep peacefully. It's worth it. Update on the main event. I texted Cynthia's lawyer for a very brief professional update a few days ago, mostly just to satisfy my curiosity. The insurance case is still ongoing. It's a mess. Nicole and Cynthia are locked in a deep, ugly legal war. The kids are currently being represented by a court-appointed advocate. Cynthia's lawyer felt confident that Mike's final text messages, combined with the documented history of deadbeat behavior, gave them a strong argument to revert the beneficiary status back to the original agreement, meaning the $500,000 would be split between Cynthia for the accumulated debt and the children. But here is the real kicker, the final Mike twist. Turns out Mike was not only a deadbeat dad, he was a deadbeat employee. His company, a small tech startup he'd been working for remotely, discovered that he had been illegally using company assets and accounts for his failed ventures, which dated back to the period he was first engaged to Nicole. The $500,000 life insurance policy, it was tied to his employment. The company is now suing both Nicole and the estate of Mike for the full $500,000, arguing that the policy proceeds should first go toward covering the theft and fraud he committed using their name. The entire $500,000 is frozen in escrow. Neither Cynthia nor Nicole is getting the money anytime soon. The fight over the inheritance had been rendered moot by the sheer incompetence and criminality of the deceased. I laughed when I read the email from Cynthia's lawyer. It was not a happy laugh, it was a hysterical, exhausted laugh. Mike, the deadbeat dad, managed to cheat everyone, even in death. The reflection. So where am I now? I am officially unemployed from my previous venture, living in a glorified closet, and I still flinch every time I hear a sudden loud noise, NGL. But I am also fundamentally better. I've spent the last month figuring out what I need, not what the world demands of me. I deleted all my social media and haven't looked at TikTok since. The meme died down eventually. The internet moves fast. The quiet zone is just a funny anecdote now, not a source of constant anxiety. I realized I can't build a refuge out of external rules. I have to build boundaries internally. And sometimes the ultimate boundary is simply walking away from the entire situation, even when it feels like financial and professional suicide. The biggest shift. That moment when Nicole showed up at my apartment for a blazer and I didn't stutter, I didn't negotiate, and I didn't panic and try to appease her. I just said no and hung up the phone. It was the hardest thing I've done, but also the most necessary. I still owe the landlord for some minor damages at the commercial space, which I am paying off in installments. I still feel guilty about not deleting the footage for Cynthia, but I made the decision to prioritize my own legal neck. And honestly, Brenda the lawyer was right. Sometimes self-preservation looks like bureaucracy. The story of the funeral fight wasn't about the money or the deadbeat. It was about me learning that my peace is non-negotiable, and if a situation is too chaotic, too loud, and too legally convoluted, the only solution is often total, immediate retreat. I'm working on my own coding project now. It's a focus tool that generates white noise patterns based on user input, basically the quiet zone, but digital and portable and entirely under my control. I'm thinking about calling it the internal zone. I'm still Juan Garcia 45M, still trying to figure out this whole late life autism thing, but now I know that silence is something you carry with you, not something you rent. Anyway, that's the update. I'm okay, barely, but okay. We'll update if the legal saga over Mike's blazer somehow reaches the Supreme Court. Probably not though. I think I finally got out of the splash zone.